The mechanic opened his shop the same way he did every morning. He lifted the heavy metal shutter by hand because the motor had been broken for months. Fixing it would cost money, and money was always tight. The shop was small, old, and squeezed between two bigger buildings. Paint peeled off the walls. The sign outside had faded letters, but people in the area still knew the place. They came because the mechanic was honest. He did not overcharge. He did not lie. He fixed what needed fixing and nothing more. He had been working with machines since he was young. Life had not been kind to him, but it had made him patient. He arrived early, stayed late, and worked even when his back hurt. Some days were good. Some days were slow. On slow days, he worried about rent, electricity, and the cost of parts. But he never showed it on his face. He believed that worry scared customers away. That afternoon felt like one of those slow days. Only 2 cars had come in since morning. One needed an oil change. The other had a loose belt. Both jobs were small, and the payments barely covered lunch. As the sun began to move lower in the sky, the mechanic wiped his hands on a rag and thought about closing early. There was no point in waiting, he told himself. No one came this late anymore. Just as he reached for the light switch, a car rolled into the driveway with a strange sound. It coughed, rattled, and then stopped suddenly, as if it had given up. The mechanic looked over and sighed softly. The car was old but clean. Someone had tried to take care of it, even if it was struggling now. A woman stepped out slowly. Her shoulders were tight, and her face showed worry before she even spoke. She looked around, as if unsure whether she should be there. The mechanic walked toward her, keeping his voice calm. What seems to be the problem? He asked Dot. She hesitated before answering. She explained that the car had started acting strange earlier that day. She had ignored it because she had places to be. Now it had completely stopped. Her voice shook as she spoke. She was not acting. The fear was real. The mechanic asked her to pop the hood. As he looked inside, he could already tell what was wrong. It was not a big issue. A worn part, nothing serious. Something that could be fixed in less than an hour. How much will it cost? She asked quickly, almost too quickly. He named a small amount, already lower than most shops would charge. The woman's face fell. She looked down at her hands and took a deep breath. Then she said quietly that she did not have that kind of money. Not today. Maybe not for a while, Dot. She explained that she had just gone through a hard time. Bills had piled up. One problem had led to another. The car breaking down was the last thing she needed. She said she understood if he could not help her. She would find another way somehow. The mechanic listened without interrupting. He had heard similar stories before. People often thought mechanics did not understand life problems. But he did. He had been there himself. He remembered nights when he had counted coins just to buy food. He remembered asking for time to pay bills. He looked at the woman again. She was not asking for pity. She was not demanding anything. She was simply tired. "Let me take another look," he said. He spent a few minutes checking again, even though he already knew the answer. Finally, he closed the hood and looked at her. "It's not a big problem," he said. "I can fix it now." Her eyes filled with hope, but it faded quickly. "I really don't have the money," she repeated. He paused. This was the moment where many people would turn away. He thought about the empty shop, the unpaid bills, the broken shutter motor. He thought about how helping her would not fix his own problems. Then he thought about something else. He thought about what kind of person he wanted to be when no one was watching. "It's okay," he said. "You don't have to pay." The woman froze. She stared at him, sure she had misunderstood. "I'm sorry?" She asked. "I'll fix it," he said again. "No charge." Her hands began to shake. She asked why he would do that for someone he did not know. The mechanic shrugged. "Because sometimes people need help," he said simply. "And today, that person is you." Tears rolled down her face. She tried to argue. She offered to pay later. She promised she would come back. He gently shook his head. "Just get home safe," he said. He got to work right away. The repair was simple, but he took his time, making sure everything was done right. As he worked, he felt lighter, as if doing the right thing had lifted something heavy from his chest. When the job was finished, he started the car. The engine ran smoothly. The woman covered her mouth in disbelief. She thanked him again and again, her voice breaking each time. Before leaving, she turned back and looked at the shop, as if trying to memorize it. "I won't forget this," she said. He nodded and waved as she drove away. The mechanic watched until the car disappeared down the road. Then he closed the shop for the night. He did not know that this small moment, this quiet choice made on an ordinary afternoon, was about to change his life in a way he could never imagine. After the woman drove away, the mechanic wiped his hands on a rag and leaned back against the workbench. He felt tired, but in a different way than usual. It was not the exhaustion from long hours or heavy work. It was the calm satisfaction of having helped someone when they really needed it. He thought about how easy it would have been to say no, to turn her away, to put his own problems first. But he had not. He had chosen to help. He cleaned up the shop slowly. Each tool went back in its place. The grease stains on his overalls reminded him of years of hard work, years of fixing problems, years of surviving when life had not been easy. He often wondered if anyone noticed how much he tried to keep everything running smoothly, not just the cars, but his life. And now, he thought, maybe someone would remember something else, that he cared. The shop was quiet, as it often was in the evening. The sun had almost disappeared behind the buildings, leaving the street dim. The mechanic sat on an old stool, sipping water from a glass he had rinsed himself. He tried to think about other things, maybe the next day's work, but his mind kept returning to the woman's face. There was genuine fear, exhaustion, and hope all mixed together. He could still see her eyes widening when he told her she did not have to pay Dot. He thought about how little things sometimes made the biggest difference. A repair, a kind word, a simple choice to help. He had seen it before, in small ways, but it had never affected him so deeply. Perhaps it was the way she had looked at him, not just grateful, but almost as if she had been expecting kindness to be rare. And maybe it was. He had met too many people who only cared about money or status, people who would have laughed or demanded payment. But she had trusted someone she didn't know, and he had not disappointed her. Later that evening, as he prepared to lock up, he thought about the chain of events that led her there. Life had a way of pushing people into difficult situations, and sometimes it pushed them toward kindness. He didn't consider himself a hero. He had made mistakes. He had been angry at life. He had even been selfish at times. But in that moment, he felt he had done something pure, something honest, something that would not be forgotten. He glanced at the empty street. No one was around to witness his choice, but he didn't need them to. He had seen the woman's reaction, felt her relief, and that was enough. That was a reward in itself. He realized that moments like these, small as they seemed, could change people in ways no one could measure. For her, it was a lifeline. For him, it was a reminder of why he kept doing this work, why he kept showing up every day that he began closing the shop properly, checking that the doors were locked and the equipment was safe. He felt the usual weight of worry bills, parts, and expenses, but it was lighter than before. The act of helping someone had shifted something inside him. For a moment, he believed that maybe life had a balance, that good deeds could ripple outward and return when least expected. He did not know how or when, but he hoped it would. As he walked home, he noticed the streets were quieter than usual. The evening had that still, calm feeling where the world seemed to pause. He remembered the woman's words, the way her voice had trembled, and the way she had smiled despite everything. It was a simple smile, but it carried so much. He felt connected to her, even after she had gone, as if the brief encounter had left a mark on both of them. That night, he couldn't sleep as easily as he usually did. He kept thinking about how fragile people's lives could be, how quickly things could go wrong, and how a single gesture could make a world of difference. He remembered the times in his own life when someone had helped him unexpectedly, and he realized how those moments had shaped him just as much. Sometimes, the right choice was not about money or reward, but about heart. He also thought about what might happen next. The woman had promised she would not forget, but he knew that people often moved on quickly. He didn't expect anything in return. Still, he wondered if there was some way the world would respond, if kindness could come back in ways that were surprising. He smiled softly, imagining a world where helping someone created small chains of good that spread further than anyone could see. The next morning, he arrived at the shop earlier than usual. Something felt different. Maybe it was the memory of yesterday, the sense that he had done something meaningful. He went about his work, fixing cars, checking engines, and talking to a few regular customers who stopped by. Everything seemed normal, yet he couldn't shake the feeling. Life had subtly shifted. He was still the same mechanic, the same person, but the day felt lighter, brighter, more full of possibility. Hours passed, and he focused on his work, as always. Yet a small part of him remained alert, waiting for something to happen. He didn't know what, but he felt that the universe had a way of rewarding honesty and heart. He didn't expect grandeur or fame. He simply hoped that the small choices people made could carry weight, that one day someone's kindness could return when it was needed most. Later, as he was tightening a bolt on a car, he heard a sound outside, a soft engine hum, distant at first, growing louder. He looked up and saw a car slowly driving by. Nothing unusual, except for the shine of it. A sleek, expensive-looking car, the kind he rarely saw in his neighborhood. He returned to his work, thinking it was just someone passing through. Minutes later, another car appeared, even more polished, more eye-catching. It rolled to a stop in front of the shop, and the mechanic finally put down his tools and stepped outside. There was a strange feeling in his chest, a mix of curiosity and unease. He had no idea what was coming next, but he felt that yesterday's choice, simple as it had been, was connected to whatever was unfolding now. He took a deep breath and watched. The day continued, and more cars arrived. Each one better than the last, more luxurious, more impressive. The mechanic's heart pounded, and he could hardly believe his eyes. He still didn't understand why, but he felt certain it had something to do with the woman he had helped. Somehow, the act of kindness had set a chain of events into motion that he could not yet comprehend. He stepped back into his shop, preparing himself for whatever was about to happen, realizing that life had a way of surprising people when they least expected it. And perhaps, just perhaps, he was about to witness something extraordinary. By the middle of the afternoon, the street in front of the mechanic's shop had begun to change in ways he could hardly believe. One car after another had pulled in, each shinier and more expensive than the last. He stepped outside, rubbing his eyes, certain that he must be seeing things. Yet the cars were real, and they were all here, lined up as if waiting for him. People stepped out, dressed in suits and fine clothing. They looked confident, poised, and in control. But instead of walking past, they came toward the shop, asking quietly for the mechanic by name. Each person approached him with a sense of urgency mixed with respect. The mechanic's heart began to race. He had no idea what was happening. His hands shook slightly as he tried to maintain his usual calm. The first man, holding a clipboard and a polite smile, spoke first. "Are you the mechanic who helped a woman yesterday afternoon?" he asked. The mechanic nodded cautiously. "Yes, I believe I did. Why do you ask?" The man smiled again. "She told us what you did, how you helped her without expecting anything in return." The mechanic blinked. He had expected nothing. No praise, no reward. Helping her had been enough. Now, standing there, with a line of luxury cars behind this stranger, he felt a mix of confusion and disbelief. "Why are you all here?" he asked, his voice calm but trembling inside. The man looked at him steadily. "We wanted to see the person who showed such honesty and compassion. It is not often that someone does the right thing without thinking about personal gain. We wanted to meet you, to thank you, and to offer support." Support. The word felt strange. He had never been offered anything like that. Support had meant helping him with tools, discounts on parts, or advice from other mechanics. Never had it meant this. Never had it meant a line of people with expensive cars standing in front of his humble shop, waiting for him to understand. Another person stepped forward, a woman in a sharp dress and polished shoes. She spoke with confidence, but her eyes carried warmth. "We have been watching how you run your shop, how you treat people, how you choose honesty over profit. It is rare. We want to help you expand your business." The mechanic shook his head. "I don't understand. You want to help me?" "Yes," she said simply. "Your actions spoke louder than words. The kindness you showed a stranger tells us a lot about the kind of person you are. That is something we value more than money or fame." He was speechless. He could not find words. He thought about the broken shutter, the peeling paint, the tools he had saved up for years to buy. How could these people possibly care about him? How could they even notice someone like him in such a small, quiet shop? One of the men stepped closer and held out a folder. "We have made arrangements for you. Investments, resources, partnerships. Anything you need to make this shop the place it could be. We want to help you grow, not because we expect anything in return, but because you showed that integrity still matters." The mechanic stared at the folder. He could not open it. He did not know what to say. His mind spun with questions. Was this real? Was it a prank? How did helping one woman lead to this? But deep down, he knew it was true. The way these people looked at him, with respect and admiration, told him that what they said was real. He took a step back, looking at the street filled with luxury cars, the lined-up people, the curious neighbors watching from windows and doorways. Some had started whispering, pointing, trying to understand what was happening. But he barely noticed them. His attention was fixed on the strangers, who had come because of a simple act of kindness he had offered the day before. Another woman, slightly older, with gray streaks in her hair and a warm smile, spoke gently. "We know you don't expect anything. That is why we are here. We want to make sure that someone like you, someone who does good without thinking about reward, is supported. It's rare. Too rare. And it is needed." The mechanic finally managed a small nod. I didn't do it for this," he said, his voice quiet. I just wanted to help her. That's all." "I understand," said the first man again. "And that is exactly why we are here. Because the world should reward people like you, even if you never ask for it." He felt a lump in his throat. For years, he had worked hard, stayed honest, and helped others whenever he could. He had often wondered if it made any difference at all. He had sometimes felt invisible, unnoticed, trapped in a life where his work was necessary but rarely appreciated. And now, suddenly, everything was different. Recognition, respect, opportunity, all of it arrived because of a choice he had made without thinking of reward. He walked slowly toward the street, toward the crowd. He wanted to understand more, to hear everything they had to say. As he did, neighbors who had watched quietly began to murmur in excitement. Some came closer, trying to see what was happening. They could hardly believe it themselves. Seeing the humble mechanic, known for being kind and honest, standing in front of his shop as luxury cars filled the street, the first man spoke again, outlining plans, ideas, and opportunities. He talked about upgrading equipment, expanding the shop, and connecting the mechanic with experienced partners who could help the business grow. He spoke about loans, resources, and strategies. But all the while, he emphasized that it was not charity. This was not a handout. It was an investment in someone who had integrity, someone whose values aligned with theirs. They wanted to help, not for profit, but because they believed good deeds deserved recognition. The mechanic listened, barely able to take it all in. Each word added weight to the moment. Each idea seemed larger than his small shop, yet he felt hope for the first time in years. He realized that helping one person, without expectation, had created a ripple effect far beyond what he could imagine. His small act had caught the attention of people who valued honesty and kindness. Hours passed, and more people arrived. More luxury cars appeared, all lined neatly along the street. Each person who came had something to offer, a way to help, a story of how they had been touched by the woman he had helped. Some had connections, some had resources, but all shared a common respect for him and the choice he had made. The mechanic's chest felt heavy with emotion, but it was not sadness. It was a mix of disbelief, gratitude, and cautious hope. He could not believe how one small decision had changed everything so quickly. It was overwhelming, but it also made him understand something important, that life sometimes notices good deeds. Even if the world is often unfair, Dottie thought about the woman again, imagining her driving home, unaware of what had happened now. He smiled softly. Without her, this chain of events would not have started. And yet, he also knew he had made the choice. The power to help had been his, and he had used it by the time the sun began to dip low in the sky. The mechanic stood in front of his shop, surrounded by people, cars, and opportunities that had once seemed impossible. And he realized that sometimes the smallest acts, kindness without expectation, honesty without compromise, could change lives, not just the lives of those helped, but the life of the helper as well. He took a deep breath and prepared to listen, to learn, and to step into a future that had opened up because he had chosen to do the right thing. When no one was watching, the mechanic still stood in the doorway of his small shop, his eyes moving from one expensive car to another. The crowd of well-dressed people had grown, and his heart was pounding in a mix of disbelief and curiosity. He had never imagined that helping someone could lead to this, and yet here it was his quiet, humble shop had become the center of attention. Finally, one of the visitors, a man with a calm voice and kind eyes, stepped forward to speak. "We realize this may be overwhelming," he said. "We want to explain why we are here and why all of this has happened." The mechanic nodded, trying to listen carefully while keeping his composure. I don't understand. Why are all of you here? Why all these cars?" The man smiled gently. "Yesterday, the woman you helped is part of a family and business group that we work closely with. She told us what happened. She told us how you treated her with kindness and respect without expecting payment. She said it was rare, and she wanted us to see for ourselves." The mechanic blinked. He was shocked. He had not known anything about her life. To him, she had been just someone in need, someone struggling to get her car fixed. But now, he realized that his actions had reached people far beyond what he had imagined, not another woman from the group stepped forward. Her voice was soft but steady. She told us she had been turned away by others, but you didn't. You chose to help, even though it meant nothing for you at the time. That made an impression on all of us. Your honesty, your compassion, and your integrity stood out. The mechanic took a deep breath. I didn't do it for recognition, he said quietly. I just wanted to help her. That is exactly why we are here, the man said. We are not here because of what you did for us. We are here because of what you did for someone else, without expecting anything in return. That shows the kind of person you are, and people like you are rare. People who choose to do the right thing, even when no one is watching, deserve to be supported. The mechanic's mind was spinning. He could not have imagined that a simple act of kindness could lead to this. He thought about his shop, his tools, his small business, and the challenges he faced every day. And now, all of a sudden, there was an opportunity to grow, to make a difference, not just for himself, but for the people who came to his shop needing help. One of the younger members of the group, a man in his 30s, spoke next. We want to help you expand your business. We can provide better equipment, financial support, and connections with experienced professionals. This is not charity. We want to invest in someone we believe in, someone who values honesty and integrity as much as we do. The mechanic shook his head, unable to find the right words. He had spent years struggling to keep his business alive, worrying about rent, tools, and repairs. No one had ever offered him anything like this before. He had never been recognized in this way. The offer was overwhelming, almost too much to believe. The woman who had first explained the connection added, "We are giving you a choice. You can accept our help and grow your shop into a place that can serve more people. Or you can continue as you have, small and quiet, but know that your actions have inspired us and that the world noticed. Whatever you choose, it is your decision, and it will not change the respect we have for you." The mechanic stepped back, letting the words sink in. He looked at the group, at the cars, at the street filled with attention, and he felt a mix of emotions, gratitude, disbelief, and cautious hope. He realized that his life was about to change, not because he sought it, but because he had acted with honesty and compassion. He thought about the woman who had come to him. She had been desperate, worried, and afraid. And yet, helping her had connected him to people and opportunities he never could have imagined. The ripple effect of kindness was real, and he was living proof. One of the older members of the group, a man with gray hair and a gentle smile, placed a hand on the mechanic's shoulder. "We are not just offering resources," he said. "We are offering trust. We want to see you succeed, not because it benefits us, but because you deserve it. You have shown that character matters, and that is worth investing in." The mechanic nodded slowly. He felt a lump in his throat. For years, he had worked hard, stayed honest, and helped people whenever he could. He had wondered if it made any difference, if anyone noticed. Now, standing here with this group of people who believed in him, he realized that the world could notice, even when it seemed silent. He took a deep breath and looked at his small shop, the place where he had spent countless hours, fixing cars, solving problems, and doing his best. It was humble, modest, and unassuming, but it had become a symbol of something much larger. It represented integrity, compassion, and the power of doing the right thing. The group continued to explain the possibilities. They talked about equipment upgrades, partnerships, and ways to reach more customers. They emphasized that they were not offering charity. They were offering a chance to grow, to expand, to turn his small shop into something that could make a larger impact. And they made it clear that they believed in him, not just his skills, but his character. Hours passed as the mechanic listened, asked questions, and absorbed the information. He could hardly believe it. The simple act of helping someone without expectation had led to this moment. He felt grateful, humbled, and inspired all at once. Finally, he spoke. I don't know what to say," he said softly. "I never expected anything like this. I only did what I thought was right. I didn't do it for reward. I wanted to help her." "That is exactly why you are here," the man replied. "Your actions spoke louder than words. They showed us the kind of person you are. That is why we believe in supporting you. Because integrity, kindness, and honesty are rare and powerful. And we want to help you continue to do good." The mechanic nodded again, feeling a sense of clarity. He realized that life had a way of noticing, even when it seemed silent. The choices he made, the small acts of kindness, could ripple outward in ways he never imagined. And now, he had the chance to turn those ripples into something larger, to create a shop that could help more people, serve the community, and continue the values he held dear. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the street, the mechanic looked around at the people, the cars, and the scene that had unfolded. He felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the opportunities being offered, but for the reminder that doing the right thing, even when unnoticed, had meaning. It could create change, inspire others, and lead to unexpected rewards. He took a step forward, ready to embrace this new chapter, but determined to remain the same person he had always been: honest, hardworking, and compassionate. The recognition, the support, and the possibilities were welcome, but they would not change who he was. He had learned that the true reward for kindness was not in money or fame, but in knowing that he had done what was right. That evening, the mechanic closed the shop for a short while to reflect. He thought about the woman, about the group, about the unexpected chain of events. He realized that one simple choice helping a person in need had connected him to a future he never could have imagined. And he knew that this was only the beginning of something larger, something meaningful, and something that could change not just his life, but the lives of many others who came to his shop seeking help. The next morning, the mechanic arrived at his shop feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had spent the previous evening reflecting on everything that had happened. His small shop, once quiet and modest, now had the attention of people who wanted to help him grow. The reality of the situation was slowly sinking in, and he felt a quiet determination rising within him. Today, he would begin a new chapter in his life. But he would do it the way he always had: honest, hardworking, and with a focus on helping others. As he unlocked the door and stepped inside, he noticed that the air felt different. It carried a sense of possibility, as if the walls of the shop itself were whispering encouragement. The tools he had used for years seemed more ready, more purposeful. The cars waiting for repairs looked like they could be part of something bigger now. He smiled to himself, realizing that his humble beginnings had prepared him for this moment. The first visitor of the day was one of the people who had come the day before. She had brought a set of upgraded tools and equipment designed to make his work faster and more precise. She explained how to use each item and offered guidance on how it could improve the quality of his repairs. The mechanic listened carefully, his hands occasionally brushing over the new tools as if to make sure they were real. He was grateful, not just for the equipment, but for the thoughtfulness behind it. Soon, more visitors arrived, each with ideas, connections, and support. They spoke about expanding the shop, creating partnerships with suppliers, and improving services for customers. The mechanic took notes, asked questions, and learned. Each suggestion felt like a brick being added to a foundation he had been building for years, a foundation of honesty, hard work, and care. Despite all the attention and new opportunities, he remained humble. He remembered the woman who had started it all. She had been struggling, desperate, and in need of help, and he had acted without expecting anything in return. That simple choice had opened doors he had never imagined. He wanted to make sure that the lessons of kindness and integrity were carried forward in everything he did. By midday, his small shop had transformed. The upgraded tools were in place, the floors were clean, and even the old walls seemed brighter. Customers began to arrive, some curious about the new activity, and others having heard about the mechanic's honesty. The street outside, once quiet, was now alive with activity. People were coming not just to get their cars fixed, but to experience the care and integrity that the mechanic was known for. A young man arrived with a car that had been in a minor accident. He explained that other shops had tried to overcharge him, but he had heard about the mechanic's honesty and decided to come here. The mechanic smiled and welcomed him in. As he worked on the car, he explained each step, making sure the young man understood the repairs and costs involved. The customer left feeling respected and informed, a feeling he had not experienced in other repair shops. Throughout the day, the mechanic continued to repair cars, teach customers, and work with the new team supporting him. He realized that his role was changing. He was no longer just a mechanic fixing cars. He was becoming a mentor, a trusted figure in the community, and a symbol of honesty and integrity. The responsibility was great, but he felt ready for it. He had built his life on hard work and ethical choices, and now those principles were guiding him into a larger impact. As the days turned into weeks, the shop grew busier and more organized. The mechanic had more help, better tools, and a steady flow of customers. He could see the difference in the quality of his work and the satisfaction of those he served. Yet, despite the growth and attention, he remained grounded. He remembered the struggles he had faced, the nights of worry, and the moments of doubt. Those experiences had shaped him and kept him connected to the people who came to him for help. One afternoon, the woman who had come to him weeks earlier returned. She had been watching from a distance, making sure that he was safe and that the new opportunities were genuine. When she arrived, she was greeted warmly by the mechanic. He thanked her, not for the recognition or the attention, but for trusting him when he had no reason to expect anything in return. She smiled, a mix of relief and admiration in her eyes. "I knew you would do the right thing," she said. "I wanted to see you succeed, and now I'm glad I did. Your kindness has not only helped me, but it has touched many others." The mechanic nodded. "I just did what I felt was right. But I see now that even small actions can have big consequences. I want to keep helping people, just as I did for you." As the day ended, he walked outside to look at the street. His shop, once quiet and overlooked, was now a place of activity, respect, and trust. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that his work had made a real difference. But he also knew that the true reward was not in the attention or opportunities, but in the chance to continue being the person he always wanted to be: honest, compassionate, and hardworking. Evenings were quieter, but he used them to plan for the future. He thought about the community, about the people who would come to his shop, and about how he could create a space where integrity and care were always the priority. He considered new training for his team, outreach programs, and ways to ensure that every customer felt respected and valued. Months passed, and the shop continued to thrive. The mechanic had more resources than ever before, but he never let it change who he was. He continued to help people in need, sometimes offering free repairs when someone was truly struggling. He remembered the moment that had started it all, the day he chose to help a woman without expecting anything in return, and he carried that lesson with him in every decision. Word of the shop spread. People came from other neighborhoods, curious to see the mechanic who had become a symbol of honesty and kindness. The community respected him not just for his skills, but for his values. He had become a mentor to younger mechanics, teaching them not just how to repair cars, but how to treat people with respect and integrity. One quiet evening, he looked around the shop, now filled with tools, upgraded equipment, and a team of helpers. He felt a deep sense of gratitude. Life had been challenging, but he had stayed true to his principles, and it had led to something extraordinary. The shop was no longer just a place for repairs. It was a place where trust, kindness, and hard work were celebrated. He thought about the woman again, the first person who had given him the chance to show what he valued. Without her, he would not have seen how far a small act of kindness could reach. He smiled softly, knowing that life sometimes returned good deeds in ways people could not predict. The mechanic closed the shop for the night, locking the doors carefully. He looked up at the sky, feeling calm and satisfied. He knew there would be challenges ahead, as there always were, but he also knew that with honesty, compassion, and hard work, he could face anything. His life had changed, not because he sought fame or reward, but because he chose to do what was right when it mattered most. As he walked home, he thought about the future. He imagined a community where people helped each other, where honesty and integrity were valued, and where one small act of kindness could inspire many. He realized that this was not just a story about a mechanic and a woman. It was a story about the power of doing good, the ripple effects of compassion, and the way life can change when people choose to help one another without expectation. And in that quiet moment, the mechanic felt a profound peace. He had stayed true to himself, helped someone in need, and discovered that kindness, honesty, and hard work could transform lives, not just the lives of those helped, but his own as well. His shop, once humble and overlooked, had become a place of opportunity, respect, and inspiration. And he knew that the future would continue to hold possibilities as long as he kept choosing to do what was right.